And a pleasant good afternoon to everyone here. Welcome to The Works, the only podcast in which you, the people, can share your story. It's a safe place to share your story. And so we are continuing our coverage of the 2022 midterm elections, which is on May the 24th. So we roughly have about 24, 25 days before the election. And so here we have before us now is Patricia Jamieson, Salter Jamieson. Patricia Salter Jamieson. She is a Democratic candidate for governor for the state of Alabama. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for having me.
So first of all, tell everybody who you are and why you are running for office.
Again, my name is Patricia Salter Jamieson, and I am a native of Alabama. I was born and raised in Atmore, Alabama, but I'm a citizen of Birmingham, and I have been now for over 40 years. I am a nurse. I'm a clinical health coach. I'm a certified cancer registrar, a certified clinical health coach. I'm an ordained minister. I have a BS degree in biopsychology, health and development. I'm a graduate of UAB, and I have worked as a nurse for over 40 years as an LPN at UAB, and now I'm currently employed by one of our local health insurance providers. I'm a mother, and I'm a grandmother and a great-grandmother. I got into this field as far as me being called to run for governor because I have been an advocate for the people all of my adult life. I have not held a political position before, but I have been a public servant all of my adult life. Now, I've also served as a president of the Alabama Cancer Registrars Association. I represented the state on a national level. I've also represented the state at the American College of Surgeons to train the trainer to train registrars on staging the cancers. So with that being said, and that experience, those same skill sets that I've used as an advocate, as to serve the people at the bedside, as a healthcare provider, to serve the people as a minister of the gospel, and seeing where our state is headed, is those same skills and that same desire to see our state better and to help turn Alabama around. I believe that with those skill sets, I can help unite the state of Alabama. I just want to see Alabama better, and I want to see us united. And I believe that I've been called for such a time as this to do that. And that's why and where I am, because I'm an advocate for the people. I represent you when I sit at the table.
I guess you probably mentioned why you are running for governor. So kind of give the audience some of the issues that is priority. If you are elected governor for the state of Alabama, what are some of the issues and priorities do you see that would bring Alabama or move Alabama forward per se?
Okay, number one, I see the education. And I say that because education, being a grandmother and a mother, I see education as being key. Alabama ranks 49th in the nation as far as our education is concerned. So education would be one of my priorities to help get our state to the top. And I would do that by number one, I would like to see the wages of the teachers and the support personnel. I would love to see, or I would, if elected as governor, I would implement revisiting the law that they just put in place. I would revisit that and modify that to bring those wages up a little higher, because if I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the way it's implemented, where you would have to have 20 years of experience before you would see a 10% increase in your raise. 1 to 8 years, you would only get a 4%. And I know that in order for us to keep the teachers in the classroom, to bring the education up to the level that it needs to be, so should their salaries be brought up higher in order to retain qualified teachers in the classroom. If we have qualified teachers, we're going to have quality education. I want it to be statewide in every area, not just in certain cities or locales, but statewide in the rural areas. And how would I do that? I would like to implement an education lottery that would support education. We see it that we have 4 surrounding states that utilize the lottery for education, to supplement education. We could use that to help with the supplies that are needed in the classrooms, as opposed to, now, over the years, the supply list for the students to bring home they're just innumerable. It seems as though they keep adding to it. Well, with the lottery, we could support that. So also, what I would like to do is implement livable wages by bringing in economical development in our rural areas, our rural counties that have been overlooked. I would like to see that happen. We would go in, research, collect the data, and I would like to base it upon who's there, what can they do, and also implement vocational education back into the schools, because not all high school students are college material or have a desire to go to college. So if we could re-implement the vocational education back into the classrooms, where they would graduate with trades such as carpentry, plumbing, heating and air, where they would also have auto body mechanic experience. So when those, you and I both know, and your listening audience know, that how many times have we had to call the heating and air conditioning guy over the weekend, and how much it costs. So that would bring them up to a median income. So those are just some of the ideas that I have to help bring Alabama up to livable wages. I would also like to expand Medicare, because we need Medicare expansion or Medicaid expansion in the state. Prison reform, we definitely need to reform our prisons. So I would like to do that, and also decrease the prison population. How? By number one, decriminalizing marijuana. In decriminalizing marijuana and expunging those cases where people have been, we have inmates that have been sentenced to 10, 15, even 5 years for personal use marijuana. I say, let's go back, look at that, expunge those records, restore unto them all rights, including the right to vote, give them some type of training that would help minimize our prison population tremendously. And then look at I would like to see us revisit some of the charges that we have inmates in that they are adamant that they didn't do. I say look at that, and that would be a part of my prison reform, as well as providing mental care, mental health care for them. I would also like to focus on mental health for our entire state, as well as physical health, having the accessibility to good health statewide, especially in rural areas where we see that the hospitals are closing, there are no clinics. I would like to implement placing clinics in the rural areas, expand the role of the nurse practitioner, and allow her to be the provider, where we don't have the physicians that come in. Sometimes they're not there long, maybe 4 or 5 years, and they're gone. So we don't have a continuity of care. That would enhance the continuity of care, hopefully prevent a lot of chronic illnesses, and increase the lifespan of our citizens in rural areas. If we could do that, we would see our state made whole overall. Also, when we implement the mental health clinics, because we have a mental health crisis as well as a pandemic, because the pandemic has affected people in so many ways other than just economical, but mentally, with the isolation and people that already maybe had underlying mental health conditions, they've not had the care that they should have gotten, or the accessibility. So I would like to focus on that as well. And then family values, help build up the families as a unit. And I would just ask the people to give me an opportunity to show you what I can do, because I do believe that I would be an advocate for you. I will serve the state of Alabama, not, again, as I've said before, not just as one people or one party, but all people. I would love to work together with the legislature to unite our state to do better, because we can. And I want to see us at the top. And I believe when you vote for me, you're voting for you. I would like to just invite your audience, if I may, to just go out to my website, check us out. You can ask me questions if you have questions, but go out to pat4governor.org and check us out. We also have a Facebook page, Pat and the number 4 Governor. Now on my website, you can also submit questions, or you could also give me a call, and you call me, I'm going to answer that phone, or somebody is going to answer that phone and answer your questions at 205-807-0569. That's 205-807-0569. And that's a brief summation of my platform.
So let's get into some specifics. So
Okay.
first, we're going to start off with some of the current situations and issues that are going on in the state of Alabama. Particularly, Governor Ivey had just awarded a contract to a company, I believe, here in Birmingham to build 3 new prisons. They took $400 million from the American Rescue Care Act money and another $135 million from the general fund. That's number one. Number two, you probably already noticed that the Governor Ivy and the legislator had passed an increase on the gas tax. There are some serious discrepancies and issues that are going on in the Black Belt. You have a public transportation trust fund with $0 in it. I can go on. You also have candidates for governor on the Republican side that keep saying that the election has been stolen, and they're talking about election security. So on those four issues alone that's been recently take place in the last couple of years, I wanted to know what is your response to that, and if you consider those to be a major issues according to your platform, what would that look like for you as if you are elected governor of the state of Alabama?
If I'm elected governor of the state of Alabama, I would definitely, number one, I take issue with using the money that was provided for relief from the pandemic to build prisons. I take issue with privatization of prisons. I really would look at that, and I disagree with what has been done. And as you know, as a president that comes in, every leader comes in, and you look at the laws that have been implemented by the prior administration, and that's one law, one thing that I would look at and pause that. Do our prisons, do they need improving? Yes. And I would say do that, but why would we or did we not utilize those funds appropriately for what they were distributed to the states for? And why would we find it necessary to agree with that? And the gas tax, I would repel it. And not only the gas taxes, the people of the state need a relief from the gas. Also, the tax on food. Someone asked me about that earlier at a previous forum, and I truly believe that we can do better. We can eliminate that tax on food and gas. And I think you asked me about the election integrity. First of all, I disagree with the statement that's been made, and we hear it over and over, that the election was stolen. I do not believe that at all. Not in the state of Alabama. We had no election fraud. I was looking at a report on our Secretary of State's page, and the state of Alabama received almost a stellar grade. If he says that, well, the report stated that it was at the top, almost perfect. So we had no fraud in our state. So I think that that's just appealing to a certain group of people, but we should focus on truth and facts. And the fact is that we had none. And that's my opinion. And I believe that it's the facts that were stated on the Secretary of State's page. It's what I base that upon. Did I answer all of your questions?
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned something about the grocery tax. Are you familiar with an organization called Alabama Arise?
No, I'm not.
They're based out of Montgomery. So this is one of the issues that they've been following, the gas tax. And it's some of the candidates.
But I would.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to familiarize myself with them.
Um, that's one of the issues that they have been advocating for is, and it does have bipartisan support of that. In fact, 63% of Alabamians said that they would like for the elimination of the grocery tax. What I think a lot of people don't understand is that some people believe that it's going to take money away from the state of Alabama. But I tell people, if you read that bill has a provision of how that money is going to be replaced. So, in other words, a lot of people are not doing their homework, especially those who are running for a position on the state legislature. And that is so important because you can't really be an effective legislator if you really don't know what's going on in Montgomery or you have been following what's going on in Montgomery. And so I prefer to have someone that represents me that has some familiarity with what's going on in Montgomery. And some of the issues that you talked about is definitely should be on the radar of anyone that's running for a state office, whether it's governor, state senate, or state house of representatives. It is so important because if not, how are you going to represent the people if you don't know the issues that the people are going through? So I just have to throw that out as a general public service announcement. So now we're gonna go back to uh, questioning Miss Jamieson. Um, my next question would be: is that what will the office of governor look like? What would be an example of a Patricia Jamieson administration as governor of the state of Alabama? What does that look like?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Williams. And I really have been focusing on that. It would be an administration of qualified people. I would make sure that I would select the best person for the job. Um, Say, for example, in the Department of Education, make sure that I have that person who is knowledgeable of the challenges that we are facing statewide. And not only that, sit down and we come together as an administrative body. And I know that what I would do is make sure that we have a representation. I would have a representation of everybody because I would be governor of everybody. So I would have sorry about my visitor behind me. I would make sure I have Native American representation, Hispanic Americans, Alabamians rather. I would also have a European, a Caucasian Alabamians. And with that being said, I believe, and not just say, and of course, African Americans. So I would like to have a diversity of cabinet members because nobody knows what we're dealing with like us. Because when I say us, I mean, I don't know exactly all of the challenges that the Native Americans or Alabamians are facing, but they do. I need to know that. I need to hear from you. No one knows what the Hispanic population is dealing with but them. I want to hear from you. I want to have your representation at the table if you are qualified. And that's what an administration would look like. And we would be for the people. And we would focus on the people of Alabama as opposed to political profiting. As opposed to the big businesses, we're going to focus on the people of Alabama.
So one thing I want to point out, let me see if I remember what it was. Before we got on air, you and I have a conversation about the Alabama Democratic Party. And of course, you know, this weekend, the Alabama Democratic Conference convened in Montgomery this weekend, and how we discovered that there is a sincere lack of representation and support for the Alabama Democratic Party. Uh, Ms. Jamieson and I, we had a conversation about that this morning. And the reason why I'm
Yeah,
bringing this up is because the Alabama Democratic Party, of course, is in a rebuilding stage. So it pretty much the bottom have been falling out, and now they had to rebuild from the ground up. And right now, Democratic candidates are not getting a fair share of support from the old state party. I have to ask, what are some of the challenges that you are facing in your campaign, and how are you getting around that? Before you
well,
answer
I
that,
had
before you answer that, let me make it perfectly clear that as governor, you're going to go through some challenges. And so by answering this question, it will kind of give the people an idea of how you overcome those challenges.
thank you. I really appreciate that question. I had the opportunity to attend the conference this weekend in Montgomery, and it was not the first. I've had an opportunity to attend several meetings or conferences, and what concerns me about that is for the unknown candidates who come in, you need the opportunity to, I may be the better candidate, or she may be the better candidate if she or he comes in and they don't have that support that they need. In other words, it makes it difficult. You end up having to make sure you have boots on the ground, because you're seeking that an endorsement. And to me, the endorsement is an affirmation, affirming who you are as a candidate. So I am learning through what I have experienced my short time in politics, is that number one, as a candidate, I have to know, number one, be for sure that I know that that I am in the right place at the right time, and I am the right person for the job, and not to be discouraged because I don't get endorsed by this group or that group, but the endorsement does not affirm that I am going to be there for you. I ask that the Democratic Party look at that candidate individually, look at what they're bringing to the table, and support all candidates. As a matter of fact, I do away with the endorsements, because the endorsement cuts out. Sometimes you eliminate the most qualified person and select the popular person, and the popular person may not be the person for the state or for the people. I may be popular, but who am I popular with? Or who am I popular for? So to me, the endorsements is a form of, for a lack of a better word, it's a process of elimination. We're going to eliminate the candidates and not allow the people to eliminate the candidates. Allow the people to vote. Be that platform that the similar to where we are today. Be that platform that allows the candidates to be heard, that you can hear where they are. You'll know that I am here for you. You'll know that when I speak, when you vote for me, you're voting for yourself. That when I sit at the table, you sit at the table, that I am an advocate for you. But if you look at the endorsements, you may say, this person is not for me. I say, what the Democratic Party should do is educate the people. Educate the people on what the issues are and what the facts are and what the candidates have to offer. Educate them and inform the people and allow the people to make the decision and eliminate that endorsement process. Now, I understand that it may have been necessary back during the civil rights movements, but we're in a different dispensation, and let the people make that decision.
That was very well said. My next question would be, during your time spent on the campaign trail, what are some of the issues that people are bringing to your attention?
Oh, number one, I've had an opportunity to visit rural areas. Last Sunday, I was down in places that I've not been before. Little towns I'd never heard of before. Down in Monroe County in Evergreen, Alabama. Now I've heard of Evergreen, but there are other little places in between, and Monroeville, and then down in Lyons County and Marengo County. And when you go through those counties, I've had an opportunity. I had one man to say, we have never, ever had anybody running for governor to even come through our community, stop at our homes to talk to us, to know what's going on with us, or hear us, because they feel that they are overlooked. They feel that they are insignificant, that they do not matter. I've also even talked with someone about Uniontown, Alabama. I know we've all heard about that with the water and the waste. Now that brought tears to my eyes, because why would we as a state allow other states to bring their toxic waste and dump it in rural Alabama, and dump it in areas where we have people who have no voice? We don't even give them an opportunity to speak because they're poor, and we just assume that they're not going to do anything or say anything about it. Yes, money has been appropriated, but has it been enough? Has anybody gone in to do a study? If I'm elected as governor, I would not allow other states to bring in their toxic waste and poison the citizens of Alabama the way I've seen or I've heard them say. And then you look at the cancer rate or incidents, the correlation between the cancer incidents and this toxic waste in those areas. Then I've heard one place, I'm so glad you asked. I just remember we were at this small little town, and the only place we could eat was one of these little, I won't say the name, but a little greasy spoon restaurant. And the young lady was saying, I only made $350 in 2 weeks. What can I do with $350 in 2 weeks? That can't even pay my rent. Can you imagine? And young people, I'm having to get another job just to make ends meet. Those are the types of things that or complaints and concerns that I have heard across this state. I've even heard, as of on yesterday, an educator talking about the problems with education. He says that it was the discipline in the schools, in addition to the salaries, but it's the discipline and the different changes that have been made in the way that the children are disciplined. And when I say discipline, I don't mean take a stick and beat them, but the children being allowed to have like cell phones in the class and not paying attention, and they can't take the cell phones and have them to lock their cell phones up or turn their cell phones off during class. And then when you call the parents are upset, and the administrations can't reinforce it. So it's a lack of discipline too in the school systems as well. So I've heard of multiplicity of problems and concerns that need our attention.
So you're saying that there's some parts of Alabama that you've been to and no other candidate have actually been in those areas?
That's exactly what I was told. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but I know that that's what these citizens told me. When I talked to them and presented my platform to them and presented my push cards, and gave them yard signs, when on my way back home, I saw my yard signs in their yards. So yes, that's what I've been told, that no other candidates have been there. So they feel overlooked, insignificant.
So you understand that there's a lot of problems in the Black Belt, where in that particular area in the state of Alabama, not only is the poorest part of the state of Alabama, but I've done some research in some of those areas. The average median income for that region is less than $10,000 a year.
Yes.
So from your perspective, what is actually going on? Is it a lack of jobs? Is it a lack of education? So what is exactly lack of resources? So from Governor Jamieson's point of view, what do you see down there?
What do I see that?
Yes.
Well, I was asked by a citizen in the Black Belt, says that, well, in one particular city, says that we always get politicians to come and they make promises, but as soon as they are elected, they forget the promises that they've made to us. But to the citizens of Alabama, the Black Belt, I'm concerned about rural Alabama because I grew up in rural Alabama, and I know what it's like not to have the salaries, the income, the accessibility to healthcare. In the Black Belt especially, you ask me, what do I see the issues as? If Patricia Jamieson is elected governor, number one, I say that there are two issues that we will focus on. Number one, we've already talked about education. I know that part of it is education or misinformation that the people have. I would work on educating or informing the people and because I am a true advocate that if you inform people and educate them to sometimes you have to look at the cultural reasons why people are not compliant with, and when I say compliant, why they're not changing the way they're living or different, like say, for example, healthcare and the way they eat. Teach people differently. I say educate the people, implement the programs that I mentioned, and the most important would be in the jobs. There are no jobs in those areas in the Black Belt. Why? Why are we eliminating, or why are we overlooking them? I say bring the industries into those areas. Why don't we have, say, for example, auto manufacturing companies or plants there? Why doesn't Amazon have a plant there? Or the higher paying industries that we court, and we've seen even our current administration court them, and you bring them here, you offer them those incentives. I say bring them to the areas, the rural areas, that they can come in and those people can get jobs. They will have livable wages. They would have, and their housing would be affordable and improved. Raise the standard of living by bringing in the income. And bringing the income in means bringing in the industries so the people can work. Most of the time, the crime rate we see is because people don't have the means of earning a living or a livable wage. I hope I answered your question, because that's where I see the problem. I see us really focusing on the citizens that have been neglected or that have been ignored and not heard. Hear these people, hear where they are, talk to them. And when we talk to them, or when I talk to them as governor, I'm going to hear them. My plans as governor is to continue that grassroots administration by going out. I plan to, there are 67 counties, and as governor, I want to make sure my feet touch each county. And I talk to the citizens of those counties. I'm going to look at what you need, and then we're going to focus on it, and we're going to work together to bring the state up, to bring you up, to help, to focus on, not just focus on the problems, come up with a plan, implement that plan, and see how it's working. And during my tenure, reevaluate it. And if it's not working, we're going to go back, revise it, and come up with a plan that will work, that will change the living standards for all of Alabama, especially rural Alabama.
Okay, let's shift gears to the environment. So we know climate change has been one of the top issues, not only in Alabama, but in no matter what country or part of the world you go to, climate change is a great concern. And it's mostly people like myself, because I'm in Generation X, and you got millennials, you got Gen Z. These are the folks that are very passionate about the environment. And I do want to report that in the Gulf South states, there's a coalition of environmental activists known as the Gulf South for Green New Deal that is brainstorming how do we address climate change and to bring back the stability and sustainability that was lost through pollution, through flooding, through blight, through dilapidation. Is that something that you are willing to support and to advocate and possibly fund and provide resources as governor of the state of Alabama? And why?
Yes, and yes, I would. And the reason being is because when we know that, at least I believe that the weather changes that we're having, number one, we see the increase and in not only in the number, but the intensity of the tornadoes that we have in the state of Alabama, the hurricanes that we have been experiencing that affect us, the forest fires that's affecting us, and not just Alabama, but as a nation, as a whole. So yes, I would, because I do believe that what we are experiencing in the climate change is definitely man produced. And we need to stop it and prevent it before we destroy ourselves. I would support that.
You mentioned something about you will repeal the gas tax, right? Well, on the other side of that coin, you also see an increase in electric vehicles in the state of Alabama. And of course, we know the Public Service Commission is making it difficult for people to engage that because of all the fees and the taxes and things of that nature. How would you deal with that? Will you hold the Public Service Commission accountable? Because one of the things that I'm seeing is that you have high utility rates. You have so where it makes it difficult for people to own and operate an electric vehicle or have solar panels in their homes, so much to that they're dependent on their utility monopolies in the state of Alabama, like for example, Alabama Power. So
Okay.
what are your thoughts on that, and how would you handle that as governor?
As governor, first of all, I would look at the Public Service Commission, and number one, I would hold them accountable for and for allowing certain groups, so should I say big corporations, to have a monopoly on the utilities, and break that up. And when I say that, I think about just in history. You remember when just looking at Rockefeller and the gas, and remember back then how they had a monopoly on the men that, if you're familiar with the men that built America, and how the federal government had to get involved. I believe that number one, as far as solar panels, we need to do whatever is necessary for us, number one, to because it all goes back to climate changes, this global warming. The panels would make it would help lower the bills for the people. I am for the people, and I would look at it to see, okay, who's driving, who's making the decisions? Is it for the betterment of the corporations or the big businesses that we're not allowing the panels? Or I'm not sure what happened. Something happened. Did you?
Yeah. So yeah. Can you start over answering that question?
I sure will. You asked, as far as governor, what would I do? I would, first of all, I would have a public service commission to look at. I would challenge and have them to look at, to see, to reevaluate, report back to me. I would look at it, sit down with them to make sure, not micromanaging the state, but because everything rises and falls on leadership. And as the leader, it's ultimately, I am responsible for the state and for the citizens. I would like to know why or who's controlling the reason why we're not allowing panels, the solar panels. If it's going to lower the utility bills for our citizens. Why aren't we doing it? Who's fighting against us implementing it? And let's do what's going to be better for the citizens, because ultimately that's why we're here. That goes back to what I said earlier about me believing that people are more important than political profiting. Also, as far as the electric cars are concerned, we already know that that would be a problem with the big companies, the oil companies, the gas companies. Okay, so why isn't it? Why aren't there the stations? I'd say put the stations everywhere so that the cars can be charged. I spoke with someone in Florida about them traveling to other states and not having the accessibility for electric cars charging. I do more of that, because that will eliminate the emissions that we have from the vehicles that are solely dependent upon gasoline. Do what's going to be best for the citizens. And yes, I will hold them responsible and accountable for it.
A couple of more things. You probably heard what happened in Brookside in terms of law enforcement is concerned, and that we had a prominent of people who've been advocating to put a stop to law enforcement tactics in the city of Brookside. Would that something that you would look at in other cities throughout Alabama? Because I'm quite sure that Brookside is not the only town that's been dealing with that. You have a whole lot of them. So would that something that you would address on a statewide level? And if so,
Yes,
how?
yes, I would, because I agree with what you stated, that number one, Brookside, more than likely, if it's happening in Brookside, it's happening in other little small areas. I know that, like, say, for example, with the traffic cameras in different localities, I've heard citizens complain about if they felt as though they were being targeted. And when you have citizens being targeted by law enforcement, that's not equal justice. And yes, I would have a study done. I would have we would look at it, and I would make sure that we evaluate, we would look at the number of citations per locality to see how much capital are they accumulating or earning based on the citizens and the population, and looking at, like, say, for example, with Brookside, and talking, I saw that where one lady was talking about the amount of money that she has spent in citations. It makes no sense. It leads you to believe that they have been targeted. And so, yes, I would look at that statewide, because, and then you have areas where there are traffic citations, the number of traffic citation increases near the end of the month. Well, they say that's not true, but we have heard too many citizens saying that. Also, where you've had the citizens complaining about where they have like speed traps, where they're sitting, waiting in certain areas, and the citizens ride by, and you'll see them with multiple cars pulled over. Let's look at that. Let's make sure that the people are treated fairly and the people are treated equally. And especially when you have one ethnic group being targeted, that's a problem. And yes, I would definitely look at that statewide.
One thing I want to point out on the environmental piece is that in North Birmingham, they are dealing with heavy industrial pollution, and there's been a of numerous of individuals from private, nonprofit organizations to elected officials that have been involved in the death or sickness of hundreds of people that live in North Birmingham, and that the state has missed an opportunity for that area, commonly known as the 35th Avenue Superfund site, to be on the national priority list. Is that something that you will advocate for so that those folks that are in North Birmingham will get the relief that they need and to end heavy industrial pollution in urban areas, not just Birmingham, but in urban areas all over the state?
Yet most definitely, because I have taken care of patients who have had a higher incident of cancer from those areas due to the waste that's there. So yes, I would, because I know down in South Alabama, I spoke to some residents down in Escambia County where they've had an increase, I mean, in certain types of cancers, that and the death rate from the cancers are just well, I should say are really, really high. Let me say that. And when you look at the incidents and then you look at, okay, what's going on in those areas? So what type of pollution's going on? What are they doing in those certain, and it's certain, like it's the African-American people that are dying and having such a higher incident of cancer down in Escambia County. Why? What's going on? What they've been exposed to. Then you talk about North Birmingham. You look at those, who are the citizens in North Birmingham? Again, we want to look at why are these pollutants in certain areas in a specific neighborhood. I would look at that. That's priority to me. That pulls on my heart because I've seen the health side result of it. I've seen the people
and the Alabama
suffer
Department
from it.
of Environmental Management definitely need to be held accountable because they have been a part of this fiasco as well. They definitely need to be held accountable. So we got about a few more minutes and two more things. Number one, um, how can people, or does any, well, before I get to that, any last words on any type of issues that hold dear to your heart as a gubernatorial candidate?
There are so many that hold dear to my heart. Number one is, and just us talking about the environmental effects upon our people. What really holds dear to my heart is the wellness of the people, the overall wholeness and the accessibility to health care, and the people being heard, the little people being heard. I want to be that voice for those people as well. Again, as for all people, for the state as a whole. And to see people suffer at the hands of the greedy, and it's the needy that's being suffered, that are suffering. That pulls at my heart, Mr. Williams. And to see them being ignored and not being heard. I want the people to know that I'm that voice.
How can people reach you if they have any questions or concerns, or they want to talk to you, or they want to meet with you, or they want to know what your platform and vision is for the state of Alabama? How can they reach you?
Number one We have our campaign phone that is 205-807-0569. That's 205-807-0569. And you can call me on that phone. You can, if you don't get an answer, leave a message. And you can also go to my website, pat4governor.org. There is a section there where you can leave questions or ask me questions. We have a Facebook page of Pat4Governor. Go out to those. I would just encourage you to go out to my website. You'll see my platform. You'll see what I'm about. And also, again, I just want to encourage you to reach out to me. Give me a call. Ask me the questions that you have. And we are here to serve you. Just know that.
And then finally, what would be your last appeal to the voters as if the election was tomorrow? What would you want to say to the voters of the state of Alabama?
Alabama, I would like to just encourage you to go out tomorrow and cast your vote for Patricia Salter Jamieson for governor, because just know that when you cast your vote for me, you have made your voice heard, and you will help me take this state to a higher level. Vote Patricia Salter Jamieson for governor.
And it was certainly a pleasure having you on the Works podcast on today. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come and do this interview. We want to remind everyone that starting tomorrow, May 2nd, the Australian broadcast section, along with Voters Legal Justice Watch Group, we will be creating a blog series known as Those Dimmed Spotlight. And the purpose of that is to bring Democratic candidates to the spotlight. And we want to do that through a series of blogs that will be posted on social media. We will make an official announcement tomorrow morning. So please stay tuned for that. That would be on Facebook Live. So please come and share it to whatever platform that you have. We will be doing this for the next 10 days, starting tomorrow, May the 2nd. And it will go on to May the 13th. So please be on the lookout for that. And you can go to our Facebook page which is on Facebook at Australian Broadcast Section. And we will share it to as many groups and platforms as we possibly can. And that includes the Voters Legal Justice Watch Group Facebook page. So this is a public service to us from this podcast, this network, so that people will know that you have a voice. Not only do you have a voice, but you also have choices. Republicans, you probably see them on TV and radio all the time. But there are Democratic candidates who does not have all the money and the resources to be on TV and radio. So we are doing this as a public service for the voters of the state of Alabama to get to know your candidates for the Alabama State Democratic Party. And that would be on tomorrow. Okay. And we want to remind you that the last day to register to vote is on May 9th. That's next Monday. That's the day after Mother's Day. And speaking on the day after Mother's Day, our next guest here on the Works would be Antoine Bernard Womack. He is running for Alabama House of Representatives, District 55. So he will be with us on Monday, May 9th. We're not having a show next Sunday because of Mother's Day. So we're pushing it to May 9th, the day after Mother's Day. And then finally, we want to invite everyone to a business symposium, business symposium 2022 that is sponsored by Pat Bell Innovation. And it will be held on Friday, May 13th at east of the Mississippi Diner. The address is 3103 Inslee Avenue, Birmingham, Alabama 35208. It is in the heart of in Birmingham, Alabama. And we are inviting all candidates. If you are a candidate running for office, we invite you to come out, meet with us, fellowship with us, and get to know the voters, because that's what's important, the voters. So we got all these things coming up and a whole lot more. So we hope that you will join us. Again, Ms. Jamieson, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
And we'll
very
see you
much
next
for
time.
thank you so very much for having me.
Okay, everybody, take care. We'll be back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central Time. We will have Richard Franklin and Terry Michaels from the Birmingham chapter of the American Federation of Teachers, continuing our series on charter schools and the privatization of education. We hope that you will join us. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too.